Welcome and good early morning from Hamburg, Germany at the Radisson Airport Hotel. Welcome back to the series The Ones, where the goal is to hop on every flight number one in the world. Today we'll be flying Lufthansa's flight number one, which is actually operated by Eurowings from Hamburg, Germany to Frankfurt, Germany. Now the reason for this route being assigned flight number one is more for historical reasons, considering that when Lufthansa first started, it basically existed solely within Germany, and Hamburg to Frankfurt was one of their busiest routes. Over here at Hamburg Airport, there's two terminals. To the right here, you see Terminal 1, which houses the majority of the airlines. However, Lufthansa and another handful of airlines will be at Terminal 2, off to the left here, which is where we're going to be heading to check in for our flight to Frankfurt. Now, when I booked this flight, I could have sworn it was on a Lufthansa A321neo. However, since booking that flight, it's been changed to a Eurowings A319. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Eurowings, it's basically a wholly owned subsidiary of Lufthansa and operates a lot of their regional routes within Europe. They also have Eurowings Discover, which operates more long-haul flights to more vacation destinations. But all in all, it's just a more budget version of Lufthansa. Granted, the flight from Hamburg to Frankfurt is only about an hour, and so I didn't need too much luxury, but let's go check in with our business class ticket on this Eurowings smaller Airbus down south. Now what you're seeing here is the large check-in atrium for Terminal 2 and the few airlines that do operate out of Terminal 2. For whatever reason, I wasn't able to select a seat until I got to the counter, and when I got to the counter there was only aisle seats available, so I took seat 2D. And also on that boarding pass here you can see where it's clearly labeled that this flight will be operated by Eurowings, even though it is booked through Lufthansa. Now, Hamburg is definitely one of the smaller international airports in Europe. They do have a large number of flights, but most of them don't require passport control, so there's not a whole lot of that. You can see the security here. We didn't actually have to go through any form of passport control, really just checking our boarding pass and going through a normal TSA type security before heading on to the terminal. Looking at the screen here, you can see lucky me, as the first flight of the day, 6 a.m. departure, hopefully means we can be off the ground quickly with no delay. The only bummer about the 6 a.m. departure, other than having to wake up at 3 a.m. to get here, was the fact that most of the things here at the airport were closed, meaning that I couldn't really get any good food. That being said, I did have access to the Lufthansa lounge here, which was nice. However, it didn't open until 5 a.m., so I had to be patient, and we're all going to have to sit around and wait together for a little while until that lounge does open. Now, Hamburg Airport does have a couple lounges. The Emirates lounge is actually located upstairs by the food court, and I didn't get a chance to go up there and check it out because that was all closed up at this time of day, but we did get a chance later on to experience the Lufthansa lounge. In the meantime though, we're going to head down by the A and B gates and see where that Lufthansa lounge ends up and see if anything is actually open this early in the morning. And just past A20 is the stairs going up to the Lufthansa lounges. They have both a Senator lounge for first class and Star Alliance Gold priority members. They also have a business class lounge for those passengers flying with a business class ticket. Going up the stairs though, you can see the sign here for the Lufthansa group lounges. However, this door was shut and everything up here was pretty much dark, so I took that as a sign that probably wasn't open yet, and I decided to head back downstairs, be patient, and wait for some sign of life up here. While I waited, I noted that my flight is domestic, but you can see for the international flights operating in and out of Hamburg, there's this enclosed gate area so you can go through some form of passport control and be within a secured area for those flights departing onto international destinations. It didn't take long until I looked upstairs and noticed that a lot of people were already starting to line up to get into that lounge and be the first people in, so I decided I might as well go ahead and get in that line. At this point, there was only about 15 minutes before the lounge opened up, and so I figured it couldn't hurt to get in line, especially considering I would probably only have about 15 to 30 minutes in the lounge before I got on my plane, just enough time to eat some good breakfast. Now, Lufthansa lounges are consistently consistent. What I mean by that is the layout may slightly differ on the airport, but the decor and especially the food and beverage offerings tend to be exactly the same depending on which lounge you're going to be in. Over here you can see the buffet, which comes with a large assortment of breakfast items and snack items. Now, if you've watched my Lufthansa videos from Munich or Frankfurt, you'll notice that a lot of these food and beverage options are exactly the same, even down to the choice of plating. Now, I figured I probably wouldn't get any sort of meal on this flight considering it was a little under an hour, and so I decided to take advantage of the buffet here to get myself a real breakfast. You can see I got some cold cuts with some bread and jam. That was a nice touch. I had some yogurt parfait with granola and fruit. I also got myself some scrambled eggs with some other toppings to go with that, alongside a coffee to keep me awake throughout this flight. The lounge was also extremely empty considering it had only been open for about 15 minutes at this point, so I had no problem finding a window seat and enjoyed my view of both the outside world and the rest of the lounge. The other thing that I noticed was that there was a smoker's lounge right here across from me, which was kind of interesting to have within the Senator's Lounge. And to my right was an outdoor patio which looked fantastic as far as views go. It's just that it was snowy and freezing cold this morning in Hamburg, Germany. But after spending about 15 minutes sitting down and eating some food, it was time to head off to my gate because boarding was about to start. Up here you can see an upper deck view with an unobstructed view of the ramp, and it looked like there might have been an outdoor patio up there as well. However, I didn't have time to check that out today as I was just about to start boarding my flight and I wanted to be there in time. Here we are at gate C16, which is a domestic boarding gate, boarding our domestic Lufthansa flight off to Frankfurt. And out there you can see the Eurowings A319 that's awaiting us to take us on that flight. So Lufthansa boards by groups, as most airlines do. I get Group 1 priority partially because of my business class ticket, but I would have had it anyway considering that I'm a Star Alliance Gold priority member, so either one of those can get you boarding Group 1. Now, if you aren't familiar with the European business class, let me tell you that it is fairly depressing. They don't have a whole lot of amenities. The seat's basically just a normal economy seat, except that they don't sell the middle seat, so you have room to spread out, and there's slightly more leg room. So it's really just like a US premium economy seat in a domestic cabin, except that they don't sell the middle seat. So I knew the seat wouldn't exactly be lavish, but I was curious what kind of experience they would offer along with that seat. And guys, here is Eurowings Biz Class, as they call it. Just the first couple rows of the A319. And while it might look at 0.5 zoom like I've got a fair amount of legroom, It only has 32 inches of pitch, which if you've flown a domestic economy class in the United States, then you've basically had this exact seat before. The seat isn't even that comfortable to go with that. Now, luckily the seat in the middle wasn't taken, so I could move my bag over there and have a little bit of extra legroom, but it was a little bit unfortunate as far as a business class product, as far as what I would expect from most of these carriers. Now, to give you a sense of this cabin, here's actually some clips from after we were deplaning in Frankfurt here. But you can see the first 3 rows here dedicated as biz class with the empty middle seats. Behind that is some extra legroom seats, whatever that means. And then behind that is the rest of the economy. So it looks like they're all about the same legroom, plus or minus a couple inches. The seats themselves in the biz class are at most an inch thick, so you know the seat cushion isn't exactly all that much. But I guess that's what you're getting with a domestic business class in Europe, so keep that in mind. And on top of that, the recline function didn't even work in my entire row. And here's a shot from my next flight, in case you're wondering if Lufthansa's mainline business class is any better than their Eurowings business class, and more or less, it's exactly the same product. As always, guys, not having a window seat absolutely kills me, and I try to get whatever footage I can here and try and not get my passengers' faces in it, just out of a courtesy to them. But in the meantime, we'll get whatever footage we can get of the takeoff and landing, and sit tight and we'll be in the air shortly. And as we waved goodbye to the city and the city lights of Hamburg, Germany as they woke up and headed on their days, I decided to take a look at the personal device in-flight entertainment options, which had some Wi-Fi options that you could connect to for pay, with things such as chat features, streaming features, and browsing features, depending on how much you paid. In addition to that, they also had a small assortment of movies and TV shows. Obviously plenty considering this flight was only 45 minutes long, but if you were on a longer flight, you might run out after a few hours. Now, the flight attendant actually got up and closed the curtain about 5 minutes after departure. It sounded like she was preparing some meals, which surprised me considering that we were going to be pretty much on our descent in the next 10 to 15 minutes. But lo and behold, she came around, took some drink orders, and sounded like we had a meal on our way. And then she came out with a tray of food, and while it's nothing impressive, with basically cold cuts, cheese, and bread, it was fantastic considering the flight was just under an hour, and then to be followed by chocolate and an apple, it was definitely more than I would have expected on a flight of only about 55 minutes. And a short flight is an understatement because by the time I finished my meal, not only were we on approach to Frankfurt, but short approach. Like we were only about 10 minutes away from Frankfurt by the time I finished my meal and gave the flight attendants my tray. So I buckled up and watched our landing in Frankfurt. Now I didn't get any footage taxiing in because you really couldn't see anything out the windows, but we did park next to Lufthansa's first 787, and it was fantastic to get a quick picture and video of that before disembarking and heading out to my transit on customs. Now the nice thing is that there's no customs because this is a domestic flight, but that does mean that if you're connecting to an international flight, that you do have to clear customs to make that connection. So it does add to the connection time significantly, so keep that in mind if you are transiting from this flight. But with that, this is probably our least eventful flight number 1, just considering the time of day and how short the flight was. But it was still fun to get on this, but in the meantime, thank you so much for watching, stay posted for more videos coming up soon, and thank you for joining this episode of The Ones. Thank you.